Let's get started with the webinar. So thank you for joining this morning. The webinar today is Lockdown Lookups. So before we start, just a little bit of background of what we're actually going to cover today. So key knowledge revision, so some features that are assumed knowledge, I suppose, and when you're using Excel. So you might learn a couple of hints and tips, but it's just about using spreadsheets really. Then using the find feature versus the lookup feature. There's some essential data structure as well. If you're using Vlookups, Excel does expect your spreadsheet to be set up in a specific way. And then for the rest of the morning, the rest of the webinar, we'll be having a look at examples of creating lookup functions. So I'm just going to start with a spreadsheet called Demo Revision. If you want to work along with me, you can do. So just some key features in here, excuse me, around working with Excel. So a small spreadsheet, sales and commission spreadsheet, and there are some areas in here that are missing that I'm going to fill in. I will be asking you questions as we go through, so if you want to pop the answers in the questions box, that's great. So in cell A4, Lee has been selling t-shirts, but the date is missing. So I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut here to quickly type today's date in. Does anybody know what the keyboard shortcut for today's date is? No, we've got some no's coming through. So on your keyboard, to put today's date in quickly, you hold down your control key and then semicolon, which is usually next to L on your keyboard. So just control semicolon and that will quickly type today's date in. Well done, Michelle. Michelle knew that one. I now want to fill the dates in all the way down column A, but I don't want to have to type them in or copy and paste. Again, use any questions box. Does anybody know how I can quickly put the dates in column A for everybody? So we have an answer here of drag down. Absolutely, drag down. The feature itself is called autofill. Not that it really matters as long as you know how to use it. An autofill automatically fills data in for you. It's like an automatic copy and paste. In order to autofill, you need to put your mouse on the autofill handle, which is in the bottom right-hand corner of the cell that you've got selected. Your mouse looks like a little plus sign. And absolutely, you can just drag down the range. Or if I undo that, you can also double click on the autofill handle and Excel will stop filling in depending on where the data at either side of the column that you're filling in stops to. Now when it's filled the dates down, because Excel could have done lots with these dates, it doesn't know that I wanted them all the same. So Excel has decided to do a sequence of dates, so the 1st, 2nd, 3rd of June and so on. When you've used autofill, at the bottom of the range that it's filled in, you should have an autofill options, a little smart tag, where because there were potentially lots of things that Excel could have done with the dates, it has to pick one and it chose to fill a series. I actually wanted it to copy the cells so that they're all the same. So please look out for those autofill options. So you could fill weekdays, taking away the weekend dates, 6th and 7th. But as soon as you carry out your next action, so let's make those dates bold, the smart tag will disappear because Excel thinks, well, you clearly don't need it anymore. Okay, so keyboard shortcut for today's date, control semicolon, and then use the autofill to fill it down. So the order of precedence, when you're putting calculations together, I need to work out the subtotals here in column G. I'm going to fill one subtotal in the first subtotal and then fill the formula down the column. Now, when you're putting formulas together, I always start with an equals. And because Lee's been selling t-shirts at £7, so I'm going to reference cell D4, they've then been discounted. So I'm going to minus the discount value in E4 and multiply that by the number sold in F4. So if I'm looking at that and thinking £7 minus £2 gives me £5, 2 items at £5 should give me a total of 10 when I press enter. But I don't get 10, I get 3. Can anybody tell me what I've got missing from that formula that is making me have the answer as wrong? Because I know the total should be £10 and not £3. So Demi, Peter, we've got brackets, absolutely, brackets are missing. And these are essential when you're putting formulae and functions together to understand sort of the order of precedence really for the maths behind any formulas. So when you're using spreadsheets, I don't know if anybody has heard of BODMAS or BIDMAS, which is the order of precedence, and it's just a little acronym to try and help you remember the order of precedence when you're putting formulas together. So when you type a formula in and press enter, Excel doesn't take the notice of the way that you type the formula in. It calculates the formula based on this order. So anything in brackets is done first. So we had 7 minus 2, effectively, times 2. So looking at the formula, Excel looks down BODMAS, nothing in brackets, no ordinals, there's no divides, but there is a multiply. So we have here 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 would give us a 4. Then all that's left is the 7 minus the 4, which is given as the wrong answer of 3. So as a few people, Michelle, Peter, Demi, said we need brackets in here. Because brackets are always done first in a formula, if we'd have just bracketed off the 7 minus 2, that would have then calculated a subtotal of 5, and all that's left is the 5 times 2, which would give us the correct answer of 10. So absolutely, for those of you that said brackets and BODMAS, by simply putting brackets around the 7 minus the 2, D4 minus E4, Excel now gives us a correct answer of 10. Again, filling the formula down. Because these cell references are what we call relative references, the formula that I input on row 4 was relative to row 4, D4, E4, F4. And just like the dates changed next date on, first, second, third, the formulas do as well, D5, E5, D6, E6, which is perfect. So when you're putting formulas together and functions, please do remember the BODMAS theory. Another calculation that we have here is the sales commission. So each person gets 12% of their subtotal. So for Lee, I'm going to take £10, so G4, and times it by H2, 12%. When I fill the formula down to Chris, I do want the G4 cell reference to change to G5 and then G6 and then G7. But the 12% is always in H2. So it should be G4 times H2, G5 times H2, G6 times H2. So H2 needs to be an absolute or constant or fixed cell reference. Again, can anybody tell me what I need around the cell reference of H2 in order to be able to fill this down and fix it? Peter, Pauline, we've got dollars. We do need dollars. Because cell references are made up of 2 parts, there's a column and a row, we need to put $1 before the column and $1 before the row to fix the entire cell reference. Demi as well has got $sign, well done. So relative cell references, just column and row, but absolute fixed or constant cell references need the $. Now, if you put the dollars in the wrong place, Excel's just going to give you an error. So there is a keyboard shortcut again to put the dollars in for you, and they will be in the right place. So Michelle, we've got F4. So again, just click anywhere near the cell reference that you want to put dollars around. Forget your normal keyboard and just press the F key at the top, F4. Excel will put the dollars in and they will be in the right place. And fill the formula down. So as we can see, the G cell reference was relative and becomes relative to the next row, but the H2 cell reference is absolute and it remains constant throughout. Again, you will need to use absolute cell references in Vlookups. And just one last thing with this particular spreadsheet before we move on is using functions. There's hundreds of functions in Excel. One of the most popular ones is the sum function. Now, all functions are written in the same way. They always start with equals, then the name of the function, and after the name of the function, there's an open bracket. Inside the brackets goes arguments, and I can see here that the sum function is giving me a hint and it's saying, I just need numbers from you. So I'm going to highlight the cells that I want to include. And in any function where you've got an open bracket, you would need a closed bracket at the end. So instead of doing D4 plus D5 plus D6 plus D7 all the way down, I'm just going to sum up from that cell to that cell and everything else in between. So like I said, there's hundreds and hundreds of functions that we have in Excel, and we'll have a look at the Vlookup one shortly. One last thing I want to show you on revision before we move on is I have some spreadsheets here with various different totals for week 1, week 2, week 3 and week 4. Yes, I know all the figures are the same, but I'm a bit lazy. But what I would like to do is summarise that on the monthly total worksheet. Again, sort of having an understanding and being able to read functions is essential. So as we were talking, when you're working with functions, they're always written the same way. So the function name, open brackets, arguments, close brackets, and an example of the sum function that we've got there. If you're referencing another worksheet, you will see an exclamation mark in your formula. So Excel will always have to tell you the name of the sheet that the data is coming from. So if it's not stored on this sheet, what sheet is it coming from? And then it plonks an exclamation mark before the cell reference. So if you're reading a formula and you see an exclamation mark, then Excel is telling you I'm pulling data from this sheet in that cell. So let's have a go on the monthly total. I'm going to use a sum function again. So I want to add up and have a look at the formula bar at the top of your screen. When I click on week 1, Excel has to put in the name of the sheet so it knows where it's getting the data from, and it puts the exclamation mark in. But I don't want to pick up information just from week 1. I want to pick up information from week 1 through to week 4. Now I need to hold down my shift key to select from week 1 to week 4. The control key would let you pick them up one at a time, but the shift key kind of sandwiches them together. So from the beginning to the end and everything else in between. And where there again, we've got the exclamation mark telling us it's coming from another sheet. But I don't want to add up the whole of the week 1 and week 4 sheets, all cells in all sheets. I just want the t-shirt figure. So sum up from week 1 to week 4, exclamation mark, and then the cell reference is B2. Another hint for you, when you're pulling information from another sheet, it's like a lit firework, never go back to where you started from. Always just tick, tab, or press your enter key to take you back to where you started. So it's summing up from week 1 to week 4. And again, we can just fill the formula down because they're relative cell references. So quite a lot in Vlookup functions, the data that you're looking for, the table that you're looking in, is stored in another worksheet somewhere. So now that we've gone over a bit of the revision, we're going to have a look at putting some examples in. And lookup functions, excuse me, do need your spreadsheet to be set up properly. This one actually isn't. If I have a look at the company names here, there's blank columns separating the name of the company from the name of the contact within the company. So Excel would look at that as one block of data and then something that's got nothing to do with it at the right hand side. So to structure my table properly, I'm just going to highlight the columns I don't want, right click and delete them. And that's the same with blank rows. So Excel would see this lot as one block of data, and then this lot has nothing to do with it. I'm going to delete row 11. So now we've got one big block of data. Titles are also really important. Excel looks at your titles as the first row of the table, not necessarily row 1 in your spreadsheet, but the first row of your table. So customer is looking at a heading and it thinks the ID is the data. It's not. So I'm just going to adjust the heading and format it so I can still read it, put a bit of wrap text on, and then I can get rid of this blank row. So no blank rows, no blank columns. Blank cells are absolutely fine. It's not an entirely blank column and they're not entirely blank rows. But this spreadsheet is now fine to start working with. Now, lookup functions. So before we have a look at examples of lookup functions, I just want to show you really what the lookup function does. So without the lookup function, in this particular spreadsheet that I've got here, I need to find the salary for Mark. Now I know this is only quite a small spreadsheet, so easy enough to do, but in larger spreadsheets, this can be really time consuming. So if I was to go about this using the manual method, I would use find and select and click find. And in the find box, let me bring that up into the screen, I'm going to type Mark and find next. Now I don't know if you've noticed here that Excel has decided to look everywhere in my spreadsheet because I didn't specify the options. So I didn't actually need it to look in the department. I needed it to look in column A, the first column in the table. So that wasn't right. Next again, marketing again. And finally, we found Mark. But because I'm using this manual feature, that's all that Excel can do using find is take me to the cell that matches my search criteria. The rest of it's up to me now, so I'm going to have to find that data, the salary that I need for Mark. I'm going to have to copy it and then paste it where I want it to go. The Vlookup function is designed to do that for you. So the Vlookup function is designed to find information in a table, but only in the leftmost column of a table. And once it's found that data, it will return you information from a specific column on that record. So once it's found Mark, then return me the salary. Now Vlookup functions, I'm just going to go back to companies here. Vlookup functions will only ever look in the leftmost column of the table that you specify. So if I've said that that's my table, Excel will only ever look in the leftmost column. And it can only ever find unique entries. So for example, if I didn't have the customer ID column and I was looking in the company name and trying to find this that I can't pronounce, I can see that there's two of them. And that wouldn't work with the Vlookup function. If I wanted to find the contact name, Excel would only ever find me the contact name for the first entry. So I would never find Alexander on this one. So it is important to remember that Vlookup functions only ever look in the leftmost column of the table, and it can only find unique entries. So not all spreadsheets are usable with Vlookups, but the examples I'm about to show you will do. So this little spreadsheet, this is our first example of a Vlookup function. And here we've got various training dates. And what I'd like to do is type the course reference in cell E4, the course reference that I'm looking for, and Excel to tell me the date in F4. So PPT1 is PowerPoint Introduction, which is running on the 30th of March 21. If I change the course code here to an Excel level 1, as soon as I press enter, Excel comes back and tells me that's running on the 1st of July. A Word level 2 is the 31st of July. So easy enough in this little table here to do that manually, but in larger tables that can be so time consuming, hence the Vlookup function. So I'm just going to have a look at this cell here, which is where the formula is stored. So if I double click on the cell and then we can see the formula. Now there's three lookup functions in Excel. There's equals lookup, which is like a legacy function and can only deal with 2 columns, so isn't used very much. But then you've got a Vlookup and a H lookup. Does anybody know what the V and the H might stand for? No? Okay, Vlookups are, oh, Michelle's got it. Pauline, vertical and horizontal. A vertical lookup and a horizontal lookup. Vertical lookups are used most. So vertical lookups are headings appear across the table and the data grows vertically down. A horizontal lookup would have the headings at the side and the data would grow horizontally to the right of that. So I'm going to use Vlookups today. So the Vlookup function, let's start by having a look at this function. And when you're editing a function, if you click on the cell references, underneath, the tip tells you the arguments that are required in the function, and prompts you to add them as you're going along. So the first thing the Vlookup function is the lookup value. So that was like using the find facility and typing mark. So that's what I want to find. And I've referenced cell E4 here. So I've basically said, E4, whatever I type in there, go and find it for me. So lookup E4. So as soon as I change what's in E4 and press enter, then the lookup function is going to find that for me. The second thing I need to reference is the table. So you're wanting to find mark, or you're wanting to find access level 1. Where's the table that the data is stored in? So I've referenced, again, this whole table here. And remember, Excel can only look up the leftmost column in the table that you've defined. The table could include the headings, which in this instance, it doesn't matter because none of the references are the same as the heading. But just to be sure, I've just highlighted the figures. So we've said the lookup value, I want you to find what I type in E4, and you'll find it in the leftmost column of that little table. The next thing the arguments need from me is the column index number. Now, I'm not sure, if I've never used a Vlookup before, I wouldn't actually know what Excel was asking me for there. But what Excel is doing is it's looking at this table that you've got here, and the columns are referenced within the table as numbers rather than column A, column B, column C, or even the words in the table. So across this table, that would be the first column, that would be the second column, and that would be the third column. So because I want to have the date, the column index number to return, so once you've found mark, or once you've found ACC level 1, in the leftmost column of that table, tell me what's in the third column across that record. If I was to change that to a 2, so the second column would be the title of the course, Access Introduction. Or if I change that to 3, the date is in the third column across. So it tells me the date it's running. And the reason it references the column index numbers is your table might not always start in column A. So this table now, for example, starts in D4. Let's have a look at the formula. So starting in D4. And the date is still in the third column across the table, not necessarily the spreadsheet. Finally, with the Vlookup function, we've got this range lookup at the end. And we've got false in there at the moment, so you're probably thinking, well, if it wasn't false, the only other option that I could put in there is maybe true. And this is where Excel is asking you, do you want to find an exact match or do you want to find an approximate match? So if I said, oh no, actually, an approximate match is fine, so I'll just double click on true and press enter. It's given me an NA, purely and simply because these dates are not in alphabetical order. And also notice for Excel, I've got a level 1, level 2 and level 3. If I ask for an Excel level 4, Excel's gone and found the nearest value for that, 3rd of June. So really, I'm getting the wrong data from the Vlookup. It's telling me that the course is running on the 3rd of June. Great, I'll go book on that. But then when I turn up and it's a level 3 that I've already done, I wouldn't be particularly happy. So if you're wanting to find an exact match, I'm going to change the true to a false, which says only give me an exact match. I now get an NA to say an Excel level 4 doesn't actually exist in your spreadsheet. So that's a bit of a breakdown for a Vlookup. And if you've downloaded this spreadsheet, there is a bit of a breakdown in here. And I'm going to go and have a look at putting another example of a Vlookup in. So again, and it's only a small table for the purpose of this demonstration, but I would like to be able to pick somebody's name from the list, and for Excel, the Vlookup, to return me their extension number. So Bernie's extension number is in the third column across. That should be 654. Now we can type Vlookup functions in, but if this is something like a formula that you might use once every month or once in a blue moon, it's sometimes a bit of a challenge then trying to remember. I can't remember how I put it together. If it's something you use daily, then it's fine. You can type it in and rattle it off. But if it's something you use every now and again, think about using the insert function feature. The insert function feature is where all your functions within Excel live. The category called most recently used shows the last 10 functions that you've used on this PC. So I can see that I've already used a VLOOKUP. If that wasn't in the list, then it will be in the category called Lookup and Reference. There we go. And if you can't remember that, you can just simply, in the search box at the top, type in the function that you're looking for and click Go, and then it should come up in the search results. I can see here what the VLOOKUP does, so these are the arguments that I'm going to need. It tells me what the function does, so looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table, and then returns some data from the row that it's found based on your search criteria. When you're using the insert function feature, Excel does all the brackets, commas, all of that for you, and you can just concentrate in on filling the gaps in. I don't know if you've noticed that Excel has already entered the equal symbol for me. If I click on the Vlookup function and OK, then Excel types in the function and the brackets for me. As I'm working through the function, so the lookup value, okay, never used this before, lookup value is the value to be found. So what do you want to find? Well, I want to find whatever I put in there. So whatever I put in E2, that's what I want you to find. Next question, table array. So the table array is the text and numbers and values where your data is stored and where you want to get your data from. So with the table, I could highlight just the table. I could include the headings, but both of those options stop on row 14. So if my telephone list grows, then I might miss people. So I can also highlight entire columns. So if new entries are added in now at the bottom of this table, they will still be included and be found using the Vlookup function. Next question, column index number. So I want to find the telephone extension number, which is in the 1, 2, 3, third column across the table. Now notice how these value lookup, table array, column index number are in bold, but range lookup isn't. And this is an optional function. So if you have to fill it in, it's bold. If it's optional, you don't have to. So if we have a look in why it's optional, it says if you want to find a closest match, you need to sort in ascending order. You can put true in, but if you don't put anything in, it will assume you want true. Well, I want to find an exact match, because if I look for Tim, Tim doesn't exist. Tom is the nearest. I don't want Tom's phone number, so I'm going to put false in here. Or 0 is the same. 0 and false mean the same thing. So the lookup function is confirming with you. You want to find Bernie, it's in a table, return data from the third column across. You want an exact match. This is what I've found as a result so far. So if you wanted to check it before you were okay, you can do. And there we go. We have our extension number using a Vlookup function. So find Bernie, leftmost column of that lot. The data's in the third column across, and it needs to be exact. So now I can simply use the drop-down arrow and switch people's names for Excel to give me the telephone number within this spreadsheet. Excuse me. So is this making sense? If you want to use the questions panel, is this making sense with why you'd use a VLOOKUP and the information that you have to give Excel? They make good? Great. Let's have a look at another example. So take the this takeaway menu. I'm not sure our takeaway is open yet. Is basically I want to order an item, which is in the leftmost column of my table, and I need to find 2 bits of information from the table. So if you're wanting to return more than one piece of information, you need more than one lookup. So start off, I would like to order a number 7. Now a number 7 I can see is chips at 80p. But there's no VLOOKUP there at the moment. I'm going to start by typing it in this time. So equals, and anytime you type a letter after equals in a spreadsheet, Excel will come and give you an option and say, right, okay, is it one of these functions that you want? Let's click on VLOOKUP, and Excel explains the purpose of that function. So is that the function that I want? It absolutely is. So I've only got equals V in the cell at the moment. I'm going to double click on VLOOKUP. Enter doesn't work, by the way. Enter will just think you're finished with the formula. You can either press your tab key or double click on the function. And that finishes typing in the function name and opens the bracket for you. So now that I've got the bracket open, as soon as you open the bracket, Excel stops telling you what the function is and starts giving you hints as to the arguments that it's going to need from you. So the lookup value is in bold here. So it's saying, what do you want to find? Well, I want to find that. So whatever item I'm ordering, that's what I want you to find for me. And I can see that there's a comma separating the arguments. So after referencing F5, I'm going to type a comma. So Excel is now saying, so you want to find what's in F5, great. Where is it? Where will I find that? Where's your table? Again, I'm going to go for the whole of column A, B, and C, comma. And the column index number, well, I want to find the description, which is in the 1, 2, the second column across the table. And finally, I don't know if you can see here, range lookup is in square brackets. So when we're talking about using the insert function feature, optional arguments are displayed in square brackets. That's the only reason they're there. And I do want to find an exact match, I think. Not like going to Tesco's, and if you ordered an 8-pack of toilet roll and they send you a 12-pack of toilet roll, that's fine. But if I've ordered chips and they send me satay sticks, if I'm vegetarian, I won't be very happy with that. So I want an exact match. And there we go. Press enter and close. So as I'm ordering different items, change the item, and the VLOOKUP function tells me what it's found. Because if I ask for an exact match, if I ask for something that isn't in the list, we get an NA. So looking at this formula, I need an exactly the same formula for the price. And if I think about the arguments within the formula, so F5, the lookup value, is always going to be in F5. I'm not going to put it in G5 or G6 or F5. So when I'm filling this formula in, I want the F5 to be fixed. So I'm going to go back and press that F4 key to put the dollars around F5, just basically to say, when I fill it down, keep that as a constant. Let's press enter. Fill the formula down. Okay, I know it's working. And the only thing that needs changing is the price is not in the second column across the table. The price is in the third column across the table. Perfect. So now anytime I put an entry in, I can see the description and also the price by using 2 VLOOKUPs. They're both exactly the same, with the only difference being the column index number where the data is coming from. So the examples we've looked at so far this morning have been using exact matches. This example, credit card cashback, an exact match wouldn't work. So what I'd like to do is, in columns A, B and C, based on the amount each person's been spending, they get cashback. So Jane spent £1,000, so £1,000 would give Jane £40 cashback. June, 5,500, should get 220 cashback. This is very generous. I need to change my credit card company. However, Jean has spent 5,999. There isn't a 5,999 in here, an exact match. So poor old Jean would get nothing if I was to use the false, the exact match answer within the VLOOKUP. So we'll start putting the formula in, equals VLOOKUP. Again, I'm just going to double click. And the lookup value, well, I want to find the cashback value for the cell to the left of where the formula is. So Jane's amount spent is in B2. And it's relative, so I can fill it down to change to B3, B4, B5, and so on. Comma, to end that part of the argument, and the table array is in columns F to column G. So Excel will look down the leftmost column, and the column index number then, it will return the cashback from the second column across. Finally, the range lookup, do I want exact or approximate? Well, let's start with an exact match. So the Jane one, Jane spent £1,000, gets £40 cash back, and that's correct. But if I fill this down, I can see Jean, Justin, and Joseph get nothing because these values are not exactly matched in here. So Jean, using a near match, Excel would go down the list and think, right, well, I've found Jean's got 5,999. Well, she's hit 5,500, so she's matched that, but not quite reached the 6,000 yet. So Excel would find this as the nearest match that Jean matches. I'm just going to go back to the formula, take that false out, and this time we're going to go for an approximate match. So Jane, June, Jason, they should still be all okay. But now I can see that Jean, she's hit that and matched that, but not quite hit this one yet. Same with Justin, 7,654 gives us 300, 6,890, 260. So just knowing your answers, near match or exact match, one or the other. Okay. In this example, there's actually an error in this one. It's an intentional error, but it's an error that comes up quite a lot. And also in this function, I'm wanting to send an invoice out, but the data, so I've been ordering different products, reference 1, reference 5, 20. I've no idea what those items are, and the data or the table is in a separate spreadsheet. So remember what we're saying about the exclamation mark and VLOOKUPs often pulling data from another spreadsheet. So in the invoice, I want to find the product for that reference, which is a grey suit. Okay. So I click where I want the product to go and put my VLOOKUP in this particular cell. So where's the lookup value? You want to find the product for that reference number. So my lookup value is B15, comma. Where's the table? Well, it's not on this sheet, so I'm going to have to go to the goods worksheet where the data is stored. So look, already it's put in the worksheet name and that exclamation mark that we were talking about, columns A to C. So whatever I put in B15 in the other sheet, you'll find it in the leftmost column of the table in columns A to C on the goods worksheet, comma. Well, the product name is the description, which is in the second column across. And in this example, I do want an exact match. As I was saying, don't go back to the sheet where you started from. When you finished your formula, just press enter. By the way, if you don't close the brackets, Excel will. And please bear in mind, I said that there's an error here. So I'm getting an NA. But I know that number 1 is actually a grey suit. So I'm getting an error. Now I've put this in intentionally because it happens so much with VLOOKUPs. Quite often, the table of data that you're looking in might not have been created in Excel. It might have come from a website or from another system where numbers are not tracked correctly. So I can see that the prices, well, they're accounting, so they're definitely figures. and look at the formatting for the suit is just general formatting. But if I have a look at the reference number, it looks like a number, but Excel's treating it as text, and that's where the errors come from. And it is just human nature to look at the VLOOKUP that you've done, you've got an A, and you just automatically think, what have I done wrong? I must have done that wrong. So you start by doing it again. And in this instance, and quite a lot with VLOOKUPs, it's not you, it's the data, as we can see here. Now there is a function that will convert that text into a number, but I think just a quick way around this, I'm just going to highlight all of these numbers, that I've got in column A here. Use Control Shift and down to highlight all of them, and I'm going to convert them into just general formatting. Okay, now you'd think that'd work, just general formatting, but if I go back to the invoice, it hasn't. I've still got an A, so there's still an issue with these numbers, even though it says general. So I'm just going to highlight the numbers one more time, copy them, but then over the top, I'm not just going to out and out paste them. I just want to paste the values. Okay, now I've still got a green triangle here, which is generally an error. Excel's found an issue with those numbers. So if I just have a look, it says the number in this cell, it's formatted as text. Okay, well, let's convert it to a number then, shall we? And hey presto, our invoice should now be working. So I can fill this down, and number 17 should be a scarf, and it is. And just one last function, putting the unit price in. Before I fill this formula across, on the goods worksheet, the table is in columns A, B, and C. If I was to drag this formula across, that would change to B, C, and D. So I'm going to need to put those press F4 to put those dollars in to say fix column A to fix column C. On the goods worksheet, that's where the table is. So that would work. However, I'm also saying look for the value that's in B15. Well, the 15 part of it should be relative, because then that should fill down to row 16, row 17, row 18. But if I drag it across, I don't want the B to change to a C. So I'm going to press F4. Now F4 fixes the entire cell reference, the column B and the row 15. I just want the column B fixing, not the row 15. So if I press F4 a second time, it fixes just the row this time and not the column. F4 again fixes just the column and not the row. Exactly what I need. So I'm just going to press enter, fill the formula across. I don't want to return grey suit from the goods worksheet. That's the description in the second column. I want the price that's in the third column. Fill it down with a little bit of formatting. Our spreadsheet is then complete, and all the other formulae and functions work. Bit expensive, grey suit, 175 quid. So let's change it to a blue suit at 50 quid. And our invoice is updated automatically to reflect that change. So I hope that's given you a bit of an understanding about VLOOKUPs and some examples of where you would use them. As I mentioned, please feel free to take the handouts that we've got in your control panel, and please have a play around with the spreadsheets. There's a couple more at the end as well for you to have a go at. So please have a go at using those. Before I end the webinar, has anybody got any questions? If you want to just use your control panel, just to let me know if you have any questions. No? Okay, well, you know where I am. You've got my email address. If you do have any questions or queries going forward, please do drop me a line. Thank you for attending this morning's webinar. Happy VLOOKUPing, and hope to see you on a webinar again soon. Thank you very much. Bye.